Hello, everybody, and welcome back into another playoff preview show here on the Hockey Writers YouTube channel. And we are previewing the Eastern Conference Final. Was finally determined. The Tampa Bay Lightning was done a long time ago. That the Rangers Carolina series went to 7, so we had to wait a while to see who was the other opponent. But I've got two writers here for that cover each team. I got Rachel Nones, who covers the New York Rangers, and of course Jim Bay, who covers the Tampa Bay Lightning. Thanks for coming on another preview show.
Thanks for having us.
All right. So we're going to get into this series and talk a bit about it. Just to kind of set up the series a bit. The season series was won by the Rangers, 3-0. They were 3-0 in the season series. Lightning had a shootout loss in there, but they were 0-2-1 technically. Rangers outscored them 9-4. Power play 3 for 13. Lightning were 2 for 9. Shesterkin had sparkling numbers during the season series: 3-0, 1.30 goals against average, and 958 save percentage, and a shutout. Vasilevskiy, on the other hand, was 0-2, 3.03 GAA, and 875 save percentage. So Elliott started the other game. He had the shootout loss, but Vasilevskiy had the 2 outright losses. So going by the season series, Shesterkin's going to run over him. So we can just end it right now. But that's usually not the case for a season series. So I want to start with a key matchup here. Is a big one. Is Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider. And Kreider started to get going towards the end of that series against Carolina. Zibanejad's been on a tear. I mean, he's been scoring goals almost every game in that series. And then going against Stamkos and Kucherov, who were really good in the Florida series as well. Starting with you, Rachel, what do you think this matchup's going to be like? Zibanejad, like I said, is just on fire. Do you think he's going to continue it against the Lightning here?
I do think so, just because he and Kreider have so much chemistry. And I think that was really emphasized last night, especially with Chris Kreider's power play goal. As you can see, it wasn't really a shot from Zibanejad to go into the net. It was just right on Kreider's stick. He knows that he can get those deflections and those tip-ins, and they just know each other so well. They know how to score those goals that are really hard to stop. It doesn't matter if it's a really seasoned goaltender or someone who doesn't have much experience in the NHL. They just know how to score those really tough to save goals. So that alone, that's going to help the case, certainly. I know, obviously, Mika Zibanejad had a tough series against the Pittsburgh Penguins, especially going up against Sidney Crosby. But I think just as much as his other teammates have gotten better as the series goes on and as the playoff chase goes on, that they're just getting better. And this is nothing against the Tampa Bay players, but, they just have so much chemistry together. And Kreider had his best game probably of the whole postseason run last game. So they're just going to carry that momentum. That's been a huge thing for them. And just Zibanejad with his defense, the type of game that he plays, he's really good at breaking up passes. He's pretty fun to watch defensively. I don't think he gets enough credit with that. And even how fast Chris Kreider can skate and things like that. He did have a little bit of a rough time keeping up with the Canes, which is interesting because they're a fast team too. But it'll be really interesting to see that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is that, Zibanejad, like you said, that Pittsburgh series, he struggled, and but he just got on a tear, and now he's scoring like he was during the regular season. So, Jim, looking at the other side of this, Steven Stamkos, Nikita Kucherov, they were big in the last series. They were big against Toronto too. What do you think they'll be able to go against Zibanejad? I don't know if they'll be the ones matching directly with them. If Braden Point is back, he'll probably do it. But what do you think of this matchup?
Yeah, I think the key thing there is if Tampa gets Braden Point, that would go a long way to, trying to nullify, Zibanejad and Kreider's effect. Stamkos and Kucherov, they've been there. They're going to just take this like they have been doing in a very workmanlike, efficiency. They're going to do just fine. I wouldn't expect them to be matched up a lot. I'm not sure the Rangers really want that. I think they do just fine, but I think you would kind of more want the odd matchups. So, especially at your home when you can, put out the last teams. but it's going to be exciting. All four of those players have been doing really, really well in the past two series, and it's really, I'm looking forward to seeing some great hockey from all four of them.
Well, I mean, they're the main stars, but looking at the depth on both teams have quite a bit of depth, have come throughout the playoffs so far, and that's what you need. I mean, you can't just go for your stars; you need the depth going too. And the Rangers had that in the last series when two lines kind of emerged, and they have nicknames already. You got the kid line, which had a nickname throughout the season, but specifically Philip Hedl. He's been, I don't know how many goals he had in the last series. At least every time I turned it on, he was scoring. So, Rachel, what do you think about these two lines? The heartbeat line was basically put together in the not last game, but the game before, when Barclay Goodrow came back from injury. But they played a huge part in the last few games. So, what do you think about those two lines? How are they going to have an effect in this series?
Definitely the kid line is going to be huge. We've seen them play so well together, even if they're not necessarily getting on the score sheet. I know Alexis Lafreniere has had a ton of great looks. I know the three of them with Philip Hedl and Capo Caco, they've had some hard times finishing the plays, but they're really good at generating chances. You mentioned how good Hedl's been playing. He's had 6 points and in the postseason, and it's just really a perfect time for the kids to start playing well with the kids. And they're so young, like so much of the other players on this team. You don't really know how they're going to play in the postseason since they don't have that experience. Yeah. So just to see them come out and play confident and not really be worried about the fact that this is a postseason and they can just keep their game simple, it's really something that the veterans can look up to after too. So it's been huge for them. Even Lafreniere has had 7 points himself. So it's just been really important. As for the other depth, we knew that those bottom 6 players were going to be huge, especially Barclay Goodrow with his experience against Tampa, or with Tampa, I should say. So that's going to be huge going forward. And yeah, just having him back, having Tyler Mott on the penalty kill, that's going to be huge. It's probably going to be a special teams battle. So can't say enough good things about the bottom 6. They've been very important to this team.
Well, I know a lot about Tyler Mott. I came from Vancouver here, and I was really angry to see him get traded. But he's a playoff guy, and he deserves to be in the playoffs, and you can see it, of how important he can be on that team. And of course, Jim, all about Barclay Goodrow, about how he does in the playoffs. So that's going to be a nice matchup going against his old team and see how he does against them. And yeah, it's going to be fun. But Jim, on the depth side of the Lightning, they've come through as well. I mean, you're looking at guys like Ross Colton, Nick Paul, who didn't have a huge series the last one, but he was huge against Toronto. Corey Perry was a big part of the series against Florida. Like we said, on every post-game show, he was a name we always were saying. So what do you think the Lightning's depth, how are they going to be in this series?
Well, the Lightning they have their fourth line also has a little name too. I'll throw that in since we have the kid line in New York. They're the school bus line because they always pick each other up. And that's the kind of thing that they bring. Corey Perry has stepped up nicely in that kind of Braden Point role of being, the shadower, the agitator, the physical guy when needed. He'll, try to, annoy as many Rangers as, he can. And they'll do that. Again, that's another great matchup. These are all great matchups. You're going to throw out all these different lines and, there's enough similarities in this, say, okay, these are good, but there's enough differences too, which we'll think will be the telling part of this series. But, their bottom 6 is going to be just fine if they stay healthy. A lot of those guys are banged up, like Brandon Hagel, among many other ones. They took a, huge beating in the 2 series, from checking and from blocking shots. So, the key thing there is how healthy can they all stay?
No, that's very true. The Lightning, even though they had a sweep, it wasn't an easy one. They blocked a ton of shots, like we were saying, throughout the series. And that was the reason why they won. But, it takes a toll. So, I mean, that rest, like we'll talk in a sec about that, but, it's going to be huge. let's talk about the defense, which have a couple big names on here. Adam Fox and versus Victor Hedman. These are the top guys who are going to play a ton throughout this series, probably going to be matched up against the top guys. Rachel, what do you think, Adam Fox? I mean, he's had a pretty good playoffs. He's probably their best defenseman. How do you think he's going to match up against not only Victor Hedman and their defense, but all the forwards that he's going to have to try to stop?
Fox is just such a fun player to watch in general, but actually in the beginning of the postseason, he was struggling a little bit against Pittsburgh, but like I've mentioned, just like everybody else, he's gotten better and he's gotten more comfortable. Again, a lot of people tend to forget that this is like a lot of their first playoff experiences, if you want to count kind of the COVID qualifiers, but this is still like the first real shot that these players are getting. And just like in the regular season, Adam Fox has been someone that the team really depended on, especially with Ryan Lindgren. I mean, you could argue that that defense pairing kind of sets the rhythm for all of the defense pairings. And you can tell when either of them go out of the lineup, kind of everything's thrown off. But, you know, a guy like Fox, he's still dynamic enough to kind of play with any defenseman, but that really just goes to show how important those two are. I mean, it's almost hard to not just gush about Adam Fox and how good he is at everything. I mean, he's so reliable on the power play and just he's so crucial opening scoring, which we've seen in the past 2 rounds. He's just so good at keeping the puck in the zone. And he's even mentioned that, you know, when they do open scoring, which is going to be key again, that they really carry that momentum forward in the games. And that's huge for them. I mean, he's had 18 points in 14 games, 5 of those goals. So, you know, he's not always scoring and finding the back of the net. When he is, they're huge goals that they can carry forward with momentum. But just him bringing the offense and still being defensive is huge for the team.
Well, he's former Norris Trophy winner. So I mean, he's a pretty good defenseman. Looking at the other side, Victor Hedman, who is also a Norris Trophy winner. You talk about gushing, you gush about Victor Hedman too, and he's probably one of the best defensemen in the league with Adam Fox. So we're going to see 2 big defenders in this one. Jim, we've talked about Victor Hedman. He's been pretty good in the playoffs, again, playing a ton. What do you think he'll be in this series? Everything
we expect of him. I mean, he's another guy, again, he's been there, he's done that. And we can go on and on about him and Fox and everything else. I would expect to see great play from both of them. There's no reason to think that any of that's going to change. And it actually wouldn't be surprising in this series if either Hedman or Fox might be the difference maker in, you know, who wins the series.
Well, they're the big guys leading the way for both defense corps. So, and like I say, they play almost half the game. So they're on almost every time. So that's going to be fun to see that matchup for sure. Talking about big matchups, you know, keep going here. Goaltending, Igor Shesterkin, Andrei Vasilevskiy. Again, we've said so much about these 2 guys throughout the season. Shesterkin, who's probably going to win the Vezina Trophy. Vasilevskiy has won the Vezina Trophy. So we got some big guys here. And both of them actually have struggled. You know, they struggled to start the playoffs. Vasilevskiy wasn't at his best against the Maple Leafs. He was allowing a lot of goals. Shesterkin, same thing against the Penguins, allowing quite a few goals. But they've both settled down. They both now are probably close to where you would normally see them. We'll start with you, Jim, on this one. Vasilevskiy, how is he going to, you know, we know he'll probably raise his game up to match Shesterkin. But what do you think Vasilevskiy will be in this series? Is he going to be another big difference maker?
Oh, absolutely. It'll be interesting because this will be, I mean, in all honesty, this is going to be the first test for the Rangers to have, to go against in the playoffs, a truly number 1 star goaltender. They have caught a break in the first 2 series by having mostly Louis Domingue. And you know, I love Antti Ranta from his years with the Blackhawks and then with the Rangers. He's, you know, your kind of typical journeyman goaltender. He's solid, but he's not spectacular. And we kind of saw that in the last series. Now the Rangers have to go up against somebody who's spectacular. I think he's going to frustrate the Rangers quite a bit. And the fact that the Lightning are giving up their bodies to play defense in front of them. I think that'll be very telling to see how the Rangers can handle that.
Yeah, I mean, I say that he has to raise his level to Shesterkin. I think Shesterkin has to raise his level to Vasilevskiy, because Vasilevskiy is the more veteran goaltender, and he's already, he's been a reason for a lot of these series wins. Although Shesterkin, Rachel, has been really good too. I mean, he's turned around his game from that first series. He's looking more like the Shesterkin of the regular season. Do you think he's going to be a huge factor in this series? Seeing that he's been successful against the Lightning already during the regular season, so he has some confidence.
Definitely. I mean, and this goes for every player that's not Shesterkin too. Confidence is just going to be huge because they're such a young team. So I think that, sweeping Tampa in the regular season, that is going to help their confidence when they kind of, if they're frustrated or they're trying to figure things out, they can be like, look at how we fared in the regular season. Of course, the regular season doesn't really mean everything, but that'll help with the confidence of things like that and figuring out Vasilevskiy. It's not going to be a fun time or an easy time, but it's mostly been a mental thing for Shesterkin, just figuring it out as he goes on. Obviously, this is his first real shot with the playoffs, so there's a lot of things that he had to learn and he had to just go through and experience, and you can't teach that. So as the defense is kind of settling in more and more and everybody's really chipping in and they're helping Igor out, that's going to make a huge difference for him. And it is going to be a big test. I mean, Tampa is dynamic. They're going to have all those different shots and all those different players to cover and things. But like I said, he's been getting better so quick. So it'll be a really fun matchup goaltender wise.
Yeah, these are both, like I say, they're basically Vezina Trophy winners going against each other. Even though Shesterkin hasn't officially won it yet, he probably will win it. It's going to be fun to see how this goes throughout this series. So, let's ask a couple questions that have come up throughout, because the Lightning did sweep the Florida Panthers. They've been off for a week and a half. So, Jim, I read your article about this, but does this extra rest help the Lightning or hinder them coming into this series?
Well, I think it's going to help them. I think it's going to be kind of a combination of the rest versus the fact that the Rangers are coming off a long 7-game series, and they have today, and then they're hopping right back into it. I think it's kind of a combination. Rest versus rust is always kind of the big thing in the playoffs. But I think for the Lightning, with having played so much hockey in really kind of different times during a pandemic and the extra, I guess, mental stress that went along with that, in addition to the fact that they're banged up, they gave up so much of their bodies to block shots and everything, that they needed that. And the guys, in interviews had said, well, yeah, we're good and everything. But a couple of them said, we took a couple of days off. The mental break from hockey, I think is really going to do them well. So I think in the end, once they get through the dynamics of being, with the crowd in MSG, you're going to have the Rangers pumped up. You get through that first 10-minute wave. If they can survive that, I think they're going to be just fine. And I think the rest will definitely benefit them.
Well, rest is always better than having to play a ton of games and, 3 7-game series in a row. Rest is always better, especially to get, guys like Braden Point potentially back. And if they were going 7-game series, most likely he may not be, and everyone else's rest or getting more rest too. So we'll see how that goes. Sometimes it doesn't matter. So we'll see. Let's look at the other side. The Rangers did play 2 7-game series, and mostly the last one because they couldn't win on the road. They finally did. They finally won on the road and broke Carolina's big home winning streak. Do they break their road woes against the Lightning? Because they're going to have to win on the road to win this series again.
Yeah, I think they can figure it out. at this point, like you said, since both series were forced to a game 7, they're playing more games. So they're learning more from those games. And obviously they're being exposed to having to travel more often and play on the road. So I definitely think that that's going to help them. I know that the crowd really does help at MSG. So obviously they're going to have to be without that. But during the post-game media interviews, they really, emphasized how great, the fans can travel and things like that. So as the series progressed with Carolina, more and more Ranger fans were showing up. And they noticed that kind of stuff. That's huge for them. So I think that they have that faith that the Ranger people are going to be able to show up, and that's definitely going to help them. Really just, again, it'll come down to special teams and things like that. Their power play sometimes isn't the best on the road. So as long as they can keep that going, that's going to be big for them.
Well, too, I mean, they're not going to have to deal with Jordan Staal. So the Lightning don't have a real shutdown center. As you know, Braden Point could maybe be thrown into that mix. But John Cooper doesn't really do that hard matching, at least not what I've seen. I mean, he kind of tries to roll all four. Against the Maple Leafs, I believe he did kind of match the third line a bit against the top guys. So we'll see how he kind of matches up. And that's what's fun about the playoffs too. You see how the coaches adjust every game to see what to shut down certain guys. And so it's going to be interesting. Let's get to some X factors. Doesn't have to be a player. It can be a situation you think could be an X factor in this series. Rachel, we'll start with you on this one.
I think the Rangers have a lot working for them in their favor. Obviously, the home ice, that's a huge thing. Pretty much everybody knows that home ice advantage is huge in a series, especially with this team, since momentum's been pretty much the backbone of things. They are going to need that. I just think that the dynamic of the team too, I mean, they're just such a close-knit team and they really respect each other. I think that's something that's going to be huge for them that maybe not a lot of other teams have. And I think that's been a very underrated quality of this season. They just genuinely want to pick each other up. They genuinely want to play for each other, not even, on an individual level. And I think that's just been huge. You can see as they go on too, that they're really good at adapting with their opponent and things like that. And I just think that this team has so much chemistry. And I just think that's really going to be an underrated advantage for them that many teams just don't have.
Yeah, it's a good point. I remember when the Canucks were in the bubble, and that's why they were going so far, because they had such a tight-knit dressing room. So that's an underrated thing to have. And I'm sure, like Jim, I'm sure the Lightning have that starting, been throughout winning so many Stanley Cups that, you get that camaraderie together and to play for each other. It's great. So we'll see if that comes into play here. Jim, what do you think X factors for the Lightning coming up in this series?
Well, it's going to be their experience. As Toronto found out, you can't just let them linger around and give them the opportunity to win games. I like them. I have a discussion with my son the other day. They're like Dracula. You got to drive a stake in their heart. They will not go away. They're not going to fold. They're, even if they get down, they'll just, hike it up and keep going out there. And I think that's the big thing there. The Tampa Bay's experience versus most of the Rangers' inexperience.
That is a huge thing that's going to be in this series. Like Rachel, you were saying about a lot of these guys, this is their first time in the playoffs, and this is all new. So the veterans are going to have to kind of come through, and that's why it's so big having Barclay Goodrow, Tyler Mott on the team, because they've been through playoffs before, and Goodrow's won cups. So that's going to be huge. We're going to lean on that for sure as they keep going here. I'm sure they've already done that too. All right, let's ask this question. We'll start with you, Rachel. The Rangers will win this series if?
I think most of their issues come when they just try and play too much of a fancy game. So really keeping it simple, just let everybody play their own role. The front office did a really good job targeting guys that bring a different skill set. So as long as you just kind of let everybody do their own thing, I think that's really going to help. You got to help Igor out in net. I mean, There's still mental challenges and hurdles that he's going through that he needs to figure out, but you're not going to have any success if you're not helping your goaltender out. So there's been a lot of stability in their defense as well. Their defense should get a lot of credit for the chemistry that they have, given how kind of not really used to each other they are. I mean, you get Braun in here, who's been a trade deadline pickup, and he's slotted next to Braden Schneider, a rookie. So, given the circumstances, the defense has gelled pretty well together. They definitely have to keep shooting the puck, which is something that they love. They love to pass, especially when your goaltender is Vasilevskiy. You have to shoot at him, especially in the crease. You got to get those greasy goals. I mean, those goals that aren't pretty. And again, that goes back to playing it simple. But they also have to stay out of the box. You cannot give Tampa any added advantage whatsoever.
That's true, especially when the Lightning block so many shots. So you got to get it into the crease, and because most of the time they're probably going to block those further out ones, and not even get to Vasilevskiy. So, all right, Jim, the Lightning will win this series and get to another Stanley Cup final if
they stay healthy. Braden point aside, they're a banged up team, and I think as long as they continue to be healthy, which includes being rested, the thing that I've always worried about them in all of these playoffs is that, the fatigue factor. They have played so much hockey that at what point does or will it, be a factor for them? If it's in this series, then they don't. But if it's not, then they will win.
There you go. Those are big things for both teams. Injuries can derail things quite a bit. So, all right, let's finish this off with some final predictions, and we'll see who's right and who's going to be in the Stanley Cup final, and doing a preview with me, or who's going to be off the island. So, Jim, what is your final prediction for this series? Who's going to win it? And give us who's going to win the series, have the series winning goal.
Oh, series winning goal. Okay, I'm gonna go Lightning in 6, and I'm gonna go to the guy who's probably we've talked about this before, kind of almost like the MVP of the first couple series, and I'm gonna say Corey Perry, because if somebody needs that tough goal for Tampa to get past Shesterkin, he's gonna be the guy to do it.
Yeah, he's done it a few times already. And so that's a good choice for that one. All right, Rachel, what's your final prediction for this series, and who's going to have the series winning goal?
It has to be Rangers in 7. They cannot have a series shorter than that, especially with it being against Tampa. Especially because the more that they're discounted and the more that they're down in a series, the better that they perform. So, definitely going to force it to a 7. I would say maybe Barclay Goodrow or Chris Kreider.
Barclay Goodrow would be that'd be a big deal to have him have the series winning goal against his old team and get to a third Stanley Cup final himself. So that'd be a pretty cool story. All right. So that's a preview for this series. Nice setup for the series that's going to start. If you're watching it, it'll start on Wednesday, whenever you're watching this. It'll be on Wednesday, so either today or tomorrow. And it's going to be a fun series. Like we've gone through, there's quite a few matchups that it's going to be fun to see how it all plays out. So thanks, Rachel and Jim, for coming on the preview. And both of them are going to be back for post-game shows as well. So we'll break down every game and as we go through this series. So that's going to be fun. So stay tuned for that. And thanks everyone for watching another preview. Make sure you're following Rachel and Jim on the Hockey Writers for all their articles throughout this series as well. So take a look out for that. Take a look at the website for our draft coverage throughout this week and the next week's coming, because lots of profiles coming out, lots of coverage on the scouting combine that's going to be on Saturday. And there's going to be, live coverage of that one, because we got 3 writers going to that scouting combine. So that's going to be fun too. So thanks for joining us again, and we will see you next time.